Hey, it's Thursday Thoughts, and if you're considering quitting your job, can I just ask you to take a couple of minutes before you do? Just know you're not alone. Yeah, according to a recent study that just came out, it looks like 40% of people are considering quitting their jobs right now. And economists are calling it the Great Resignation. A whole bunch of people, regardless of their job positions or descriptions, are considering doing something completely different. And as they analyze this, a lot of psychologists are saying it's because of the sixth stage of grief. You know, there's the 7 stages of grief, and the sixth one is that people want to look for a place of significance and purpose. And after the great unraveling of 2020, there's now going to be the great resignation of 2021, as people are re-examining their jobs and their positions and saying, I don't find my purpose here in what it is that I'm doing. It's interesting because when there is an uprootedness in other places in our life, we feel uprooted ourselves, right? It's also interesting, and I'm not exactly sure what the correlation here is, but most pastors that have reopened their churches, they're saying there's a 40% drop in their pre-COVID attendance. So even pastors themselves, around 40 to 50% of them are considering quitting the ministry itself. So we have a whole bunch of people all across. Maybe even you right now, you're thinking, I'm done. I'm over this. I need to find my purpose, and you're still in that grieving process. Well, let me just encourage you, wherever it is that you're at in terms of choosing to respond to the change around you. Let me just ask, before you make a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion, I feel like today's word is for you, to encourage you to stay where you're at until you're making that decision based on the Lord's leading. And especially when it comes to those of you who are plugged into a church and are considering leaving that church, whatever that church is, whether it's a mega church, whether it's a house church, or it's a normal sized church, today's reading in Hebrews just encourages us to consider why we need to stay where we're at. You know, the author of Hebrews is writing to Christians who are under the persecution of Nero and Rome, and he loves to destroy Christians, persecute Christians, torture them just for fun, making them the scapegoat of their culture. And no wonder they're not wanting to gather together, because in their case, it's not just inconvenience, it's persecution and death. Gathering together just paints a big old red target on them. And so consider that context when you hear these words. Hebrews 10:23, let us hold tightly without wavering to the hope we affirm, for God can be trusted to keep his promise. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works, and let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. So he's telling them, people that have really good reason to not gather together, he's saying, nope, I want you guys to keep gathering together. You need each other. You need the affirmation that God can be trusted, that you don't have to give up hope even though you're losing your grip. You need the confirmation that you are on the right road, and you need the encouragement of God that only comes when you gather together with God's people. Now, if you hear this screaming around me, it's because Ben is at a scrimmage right now at Francis Parker School over by SDSU. And as we were driving here today, I was asking him, I said, Ben, how come you're loving football so much right now? And he just said, Dad, I really love the guys on my team, and I really love my coach. And so even though he already had conditioning this morning, he wanted to drive all the way over here, about 45 minutes from where we live, to get in on some scrimmaging. And it's all about the community that he's finding with these guys and with his coach. He's getting that affirmation. He's getting that confirmation. He's getting that encouragement to become better. And it only comes by when he shows up to practice, when he shows up and he's ready for the game. And I think, man, if people can find that, you know, if my son just getting back into football can find that in football, how much more so can we find that in our people of faith? So even if you're considering like, yeah, I'm not sure if my church is for me anymore, can I just encourage you, show up to church this Sunday and make a commitment that at least for the next month, you're not just showing up there for yourself, you're showing up there to bring confirmation and affirmation and encouragement to those around you. Find a place to serve, because here's the deal. God has said we cannot grow outside of community, outside of that connection. We need each other. And even though we're not in fear of being persecuted by showing up, a lot of ours is more about just we've kind of gotten in the habit of not showing up anymore. I've talked to quite a few people who have said, oh yeah, Pastor, I'm sorry. I just really like being able to, watch church in my pajamas. And hey, listen, this is not a drive-by guilting. And I'm really grateful for the fact that we have the internet and that we can stream our services to those who aren't able to make it or those who don't feel safe in a larger group gathering. But listen, if it's just out of convenience, I think you're missing out on some community that God wants to invite you back to. In fact, the author of Hebrews says it's not optional. We need each other. And why is that? Because God has not called us to the stands. He hasn't called us to be bench warmers. No, He's called us out to the field. And it's worth showing up for. I mean, we drove 45 minutes just to be in the scrimmage. It's not even a real game. But that means that Ben is going to be that much more ready for getting out on the field when it is time to play. Every Sunday, whenever your church gathers, it's an opportunity to put in the practice that's going to help us to win for what we're doing and our faith for the rest of the week. So can I just encourage you? If you're considering quitting right now, if you've just kind of gotten used to not gathering together with the saints, you might be missing out on some affirmation, some confirmation of God's will in your life, some encouragement that you not only need to receive, but you need to give. And you know what, while you're at it, give your pastor a big old hug, because they probably need it. Listen to that coach. Let him encourage you, let her encourage you. Get plugged in, get ready for what God's about to do in the week ahead. God bless.